5 things that I want to give you for how to make it through an SHTF scenario. And first, I want to again try to define what this type of scenario is. And I'm going to call anything that is beyond 48, 72 hours, whether it's localized or whether it's regional or national or even global, any kind of event that substantially impacts your ability to get about your business with liberty, freedom, and security. So it could be a natural event. It could be a man-made event. I'd love to hear your thoughts as far as what the most likely SHTF scenario is that you're planning and preparing for in the comments. And as we move on, before we get to the first one of the 5, I think we kind of have to understand that ultimately, before we can do any of these 5 things, the first thing that we have to do is to assess risk. So it's really 6 things that I'm going to give you. We need to be able to assess the risks of the scenario, of the encounters, of the times. Right? As an example, in the same way that I don't drive on January 1st at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, I don't even drive on New Year's Eve past 10 o'clock. I don't even drive that late. I don't even go out of the house. But there's a reason. And the reason is I know that there is a much likelier opportunity to run into somebody who's been drinking and driving, right? And so I avoid the streets. I go to sleep and I wake up in the morning. The same thing is true for why I don't shop in Compton, Tacoma, or the Lakewood, right? The last time I spent any significant period of time, which was only a few hours in Lakewood, as you recall, about a year ago, my vehicle was broken into and they stole everything that was in it. So I don't go back. I don't give that city my business anymore. And I wouldn't live in that city. And if I was in that city, I would consider, do I need to move? Maybe you find yourself in an urban environment that's vertical and you're living the grind and you're concerned about some sort of SHTF scenario, whether it's a Red Dawn event, whether it's a local event, whether it's a natural catastrophe. You have to be honest with yourself and say, am I in the right spot? How can I get from here to some place that is safe if I needed to evacuate? Not proposing that you need to bug out, but when a natural event comes, you need to be able to get out of Dodge, right? So that can be one of the harder things to do, is to mitigate risks, right? Because it's not an easy thing to do, to move from the inner city to a rural area. You have to decide what kind of life that you want to live. And are you okay with not making and having all that money that you think that you're making deep in the city? So understand those risks, and that'll help kind of bring us into a next area, because a rural area is by nature going to be more low risk for at least the man-made disasters that are out there. Not saying it's risk-free, not at all. But that first thing that I think we have to look at, the first thing that we can do is to look at our staples, if you will. I'm not talking about the store. I'm talking about what you have in your closet. I'm talking about what you have in your toolbox and out in your shed and in your pantry. If everything stopped if you couldn't go to any store, how long can you sustain your life and where you're at until you're out of it? So we're thinking about things like food, about how to keep our home warm, about how long we can operate our vehicle. That can be a gut check because too many of us like to drive until our vehicles are on empty. How much toilet paper do you have, right? We just learned a valuable lesson not that long ago. When it hits the fan in a pandemic, the toilet paper is going to go dry. So what are you going to do then? Well, how much do you have right now? Did you learn a lesson? Or are you like everybody who lives in the path of a hurricane who gets caught off guard year after year? We have to be better than that. What's our ability about water, right? We talk a lot about food, and I would submit to you that if you don't have 72 hours of food in your ice box and in your pantry, you're deceiving yourself. And I would submit to you that you should work up to, after you have, a few days, you need to work up to a few weeks. And then maybe you need to work up towards a month. Like Stoker, man, that's a lot of food. And yeah, it is not that much food. At least it's not going to take up as much space as you think that it will be. It just may mean that you need to change your diet and what you're planning on storing, right? You can go get a 25-gallon bucket and fill that thing with rice or oats or beans, and that's going to last you a long time. May not taste great, but if you just supplement it, or if you use it as a supplement to other foods that you have, you're going to be in a better spot. What kind of a garden do you have? If you don't have any, you're probably wrong. And not everybody's in a position to be able to raise livestock of some form or another. But if you can, I would submit to you that you should. And is it going to keep you homebound? Yes, it will. But there's always ways around things, right? But I'm fooling myself if I think and if I believe that if the lights go out and I'm on empty, my tank's on empty in my vehicles, my shelves I'm living, paycheck to paycheck when it comes to feed myself. But I tell myself that something is coming and we have to get ready for it. If we're not taking active measures, then we're probably lying to ourselves. In addition to these big staples like food, again, water, how much water do you need on a daily basis for hygiene, for food, and for hydration? Do you have a way to procure water? Do you have a way to store water? Do you have a way to filter and purify it in your house? If not, then maybe you should consider how you can do that. And it's not that hard. Like what we're talking about, there are some things that are hard, right? Like moving to another location is not the easiest thing to do. Stocking up on some food, getting a 55-gallon drum of water or two, however you want to do you. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to do this. There's just things I want to put in your kit bag of things that we should be thinking and doing about. But in addition to the food and the water, how are we going to heat and cool our home? Like cooling, that's a nicety unless you live in the wrong place where it can be deadly. But keeping your house warm for, quite a few Americans can be a significant challenge. So if the lights went out, do you have a way to heat your home? If not, maybe that's something that you should look at. But in addition to all of these things, how many types of fasteners do you have? Do you have any sheets of plywood or Tyvek? Or do you have a box of, industrial garbage bags? Do you have a couple rolls of duct tape? Do you have a hammer and some nails? Do you have some 1/4 20 nuts and bolts of various lengths? Do you have the ability to work and to repair electrical items that you have? Maybe it doesn't have to be, could be gas powered, right? But can you do some repair work? Or are you constantly going to the store to buy everything that you need, consuming all of it, and then waiting until you need it again? Just something to think about. The next one up also is not overly hard to do, and it's I think we need to understand that we need a level of fitness. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to be a super stud like this dude that we see probably on YouTube all the time, about telling us that it's not cardio, that it's not whatever. I'm going to give you the secrets to success if you go subscribe to my stuff or whatever. But you should be able to work and get things done around the house. You need to be able to move with a sense of mobility that it doesn't break you. I don't care if you go to the gym. I don't care if you do some sort of CrossFit. I don't care if you just walk. I don't care if you just ride your bike or row. All of us are different stages in our life. All of us have encountered different forms of injuries, whether they are acute and they passed, or whether we are dealing with chronic pain. But we need to be able to get after the things that are required to take care of our house. Can you get up on your roof? Can you do that without it killing you? If you have a house, can you get out and repair that fence that came down? Physically, mentally, we need to be able to do these things. And I would submit to you that in your library, in your physical library, like having a bookshelf library, you should have some books on taking care of your home. So we're talking about woodwork, plumbing, basic electrical. You should have books about your local area when it comes to resourcing foods. We need to be smart. But in addition to all of these, the tactical, the headspace side of the house, we need the physical ability to dig a hole and to be able to pick up from that and to sustain operations and continue the fight, whatever that fight is. So we need some form of fitness. The next one also I think is easy, but it is socially challenging. And that is, we need to go knock on doors. We need to understand that no man is an island, no matter how tough we believe that we all are individually. Not all of us can do everything. Some of us, our trade craft is HVAC, and we're super smart at it. Others of us are plumbers and electricians and vertical construction guys. And while it's good to be a jack of all trades, there are things that we don't know that if we just knew, it would be better off for ourselves. Some of us are really good when it comes to communications. Some of us are trained and proficient at any number of niche things. And having a community that brings all of these skill sets together, even if it's just, hey, I know who I can call on to get some assistance. I know who I can call. I know whose house I can go knock on to find the best way to do something. The only way to do that is to get outside of your home, to get outside of your little bubble, and to go knock on some doors, right? Go introduce yourself. Hey, Bob, I'm Bill. I live right down the road. This is what I've been doing. I just moved in, whatever, yada, yada. And get to know each other on a personal level. Get in with some local community groups that share your opinions, your values, your beliefs. Become part of something that is bigger than yourself, because when Murphy comes, and Murphy always comes, you're probably going to need more than what you alone bring to the table, right? Next one can take a little bit of time to do, but it's not as hard, I think, as we make it out to be. And certainly in light of local news or recent news in terms of events, I think we need to have some stinking cash. I'm talking about cold hard cash, right? Banks have and financial institutions have been caught, with their hand in their own piggy bank. They've been caught doing the wrong thing. They're getting closed down and bought out. And of course, the people at the federal level are talking about a form of digital currency. Well, I can tell you that nothing will ever replace, especially in the crazy society, in the crazy situations that we're all anticipating. Nothing will replace the value of cold hard cash, other than months and years down the road when that currency is replaced with things like tobacco and food and stuff like that. But having some ones, fives, tens, and 20s laying around in a safe and secure spot can be value added. How much money do you need, man? I don't know. I think ultimately, between having some cold hard cash and building up a savings account, like, we need to stop living on credit. This entire country is living on credit. Our country itself is living in deficit. And not only does the nation do it, but too many of us are doing it. We are spending more than what we are taking in, and continuously having to borrow more, whether it's to keep up with the Joneses or to do whatever, right? But we should have a savings account. In my opinion, my personal goal is 6 months in a savings account. I want 6 months of cash in an account that, should I lose my job, should I just get injured and I can't work, whatever the case is, I can sustain my life at its current state for 6 months. In addition to that, I want a couple grand ultimately in cash is not a bad goal to get. And it can, life is going to happen, and you're going to have to spend some of this money. Somebody's going to get sick, somebody's going to get pregnant, somebody's battery is going to have to be replaced in their vehicle, right? And so you're going to have to take some money, you're going to have to go get it. But I think this is something that we have to continue to get after. So whatever works for you, whether it's 2% of your check, whether it's 5%, the golden rule of using 10% and putting that into savings, I think you'll find a large return on your investment of that simple principle, right? The last one is having the ability to defend yourself, your loved ones, and your property. Now, a lot of times our minds race towards using firearms, and they certainly should have their place in our preparations and in our training, in our fitness, and in our life. But is your home is it naturally hardened, right? Do you have the ability to monitor the security of your home, right? Do you have, beware of dog, even though you don't have a dog? Do you have outside lighting? Do you have some form of security outside of your house to protect you from weak thieves and criminals? Do you have the ability to further harden the structure of your home? Again, maybe it's having some plywood preset in case your windows get smashed, or to prevent them from being smashed. What kind of locks do you have on the exterior of your home? How are your windows secured? How are you taking care of your property? Just the physical security aspect of it. Again, and there's physical things that we can do, and there are electronical things that we can do. But if we're not constantly improving our foxhole, when that strike comes, we're asking ourselves to be a soft target. And yes, you should have the ability, and you should have the knowledge, and you should have the training, whether it's through an institutional, like taking a class, or just taking your butt down to the range and teaching yourself and everybody who may touch that weapon to be proficient should the need to use deadly force is required. It's paramount, team. You know, the last thing I'll leave you with, I think, is so I guess it's actually 7 things, is that we need knowledge of our area. Like, too many times we get stuck driving from our house to the closest route possible to the highway to take us down the city to another city, whatever it is, to get to our place of business. We have one primary route to get there, and we have one primary route to get back. And so we never venture off. And we never venture off onto the other sides and parts of town or our county that we otherwise may not ever have a need to. But I would submit to you that you should. You should know your city in and out. You should know your county in and out. What are the resources? What are the risks in each area? What are the assets and the liabilities? So things like police stations, don't rely on your phone to find them. Firehouses, schools, community centers, medical treatment facilities, whether they're large or small, hardware stores, food stores, general good, dry goods stores. What is your area known for, and what is the vegetation like, and how can you utilize that to maximize your own survivability? What are your access paths to get from your area, and what is your go-to if you had to evacuate the area? How are you going to get there? For example, here in the western side of Washington, the I-5 corridor can absolutely not withstand any sort of evacuation. So you have to have other routes, you have to have other means, and you have to know where it is that you're trying to get to in the first place. And so you need to conduct rehearsals of getting there. What are your weather patterns? You should know your area. You should know when things are going to dry up. You should know when the rain is coming. You should know that in some times of year, the storm patterns move north and south, and other times of year they run east to west. You become a student of all things, because all of these factors and more are going to help dictate how you relate and encounter and work through that SHTF environment. Team, I am looking forward to your thoughts and your comments down below. Let me know what you think about these 5 and really 7 key areas that we've talked about. Maybe it's something that you have already figured out, right? Not every comment is directed to Stoker. Not every reader of your comments is Stoker. Other people are reading those comments and they are finding value to their own life based off of what you have had found in your experience. Or they're answering your questions that you have. So I'm looking forward to it. So team, I appreciate you guys, man. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.
Team, if you want to master your craft and develop your tactical virtue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on future content. Consider becoming a channel member. It's going to give you exclusive access to content not available to anybody else. I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.